Welcome to the North American Hunting Odyssey, where members experience and share the Odyssey we call the hunt. This program has been created specifically for members of the North American Hunting Club.
Hi, I'm Bill Miller, editor of North American Hunter magazine, and your host for this edition of the North American Hunting Odyssey. The North American Hunting Odyssey video series was created especially for North American Hunting Club members just like you. Each edition is packed with hunting action and features professional tips and techniques that you can use to help your success in the field. And best of all, the Hunting Odyssey series is a great way for you to share your hunting adventures with fellow NAHC members. So if you've got an adventure on tape, send it on in. We begin this edition of the Odyssey in South Texas on the 74 Ranch with North American Hunting Club President Steve Burke as he takes a nice Texas whitetail. And it's off to Montana where we join Jim Morey of Swarovski and get a closer look at the new Burke electronic rifle. From Montana we head south to California and join a couple of guys from Primos for some funny and some serious turkey action. We'll catch up with club members Judy and Gene Gallitz on a beautiful Wyoming mountaintop for crossbows and big Wyoming elk. Outdoor columnist and guide Larry Weishen will join us with some valuable tips to help you judge the age of that whitetail in your scope. And we share in the antics of a large and unexpected guest at club member Paul Rademacher's bear camp. Then it's time to eat a little crow with hunting guide Jerry Tomlin. He shows us how to call them in and serve them up like chicken. Finally, we'll join Art Wheaton of Remington Arms, Larry Bridgman of Simmons Scopes, and club member Bob Borowiak for a traditional down-home Minnesota whitetail slug hunt. Well, that's a lot of exciting hunting action to cover, so we better get started. First, let's head on down to the 74 Ranch just south of San Antonio, Texas. When it comes to hunters and hunting, the old saying, "a picture is worth 1,000 words," surely holds true. But for North American Hunting Club President Steve Burke, I believe it could be changed to say, "a picture is worth 1,000 memories." Because that's what he feels when he takes a look at this photograph of himself and 7 of your fellow North American Hunting Club life members taken on last year's life member hunt on the 74 Ranch south of San Antonio, Texas. To say we had a good time on our 5-day adventure would be just a bit of an understatement, according to Steve. He went on to say that the camaraderie shared among the 8 of us, as well as the great hunt itself, will tide me over until once again I get the chance to join the celebration of the hunt with my fellow North American Hunting Club members. Steve was personally guided by Rick Hodges of Southwest Safaris, and soon after settling in at their comfortable lodge, Steve and Rick were out scouting for a big Texas whitetail. Standard operating procedures on these sprawling Texas ranches involves driving in 4-wheelers and glassing mile after mile of this wildlife-abundant scrubland. If a large whitetail is spotted, a stalk will ensue. Otherwise, most hunting is done from blinds of one type or another. And while sitting in a ground blind taking a break, Steve and Rick chatted about Texas whitetail management and its many benefits.
One of the things that you do down here in Texas, which is real different than up in Minnesota. Minnesota, we've got woods and we go hunting, and if we get a deer, we're happy. But down here, you manage for the deer, especially on a ranch like this. And part of what you do is you take out or you cull out the smaller deer. What is the philosophy and how do you manage for that?
The basic premise is that if a deer is not a multi-tine deer by the time he's a year and a half old, 4 point, 6 point, 8 point even, that his genetic stock is not what we're looking for. So we'll shoot spike bucks once they're, we're not looking for yearling button bucks, of course, but a year and a half or older, we'll shoot spikes. And we'll also shoot some deer that are, say, 3, 4, 5 years old that are say 6 points or
just didn't
narrow,
mature into the
didn't,
big trophies that you're looking for.
Exactly.
Now, Rick, you mentioned that in your management of the whitetail population here, you cull out the immature bucks or those that just didn't reach the potential
Inferior.
You're looking for. But you also harvest your does here. And why do you harvest does?
We believe that the land has a limited amount of carrying capacity, and if you're going to carry a deer, especially through the harder months, we'd prefer it to be a buck. And so when your numbers get out of line, in other words, too many does, we harvest our does so that our bucks will have a better chance of reaching their potential. And like I said, we census that on an annual basis, so it's a fluctuating number.
You've got a biologist that works with this ranch to, to age all the deer and make sure that you're maintaining that. Is he just assigned to this ranch?
He is. He's was with the Texas Parks and Wildlife for a number of years, and now he's on his own, and he's contracted with us to provide the service. It gives us a bearing of where our management program's going. We're obviously wanting to see more and more mature deer in the population.
How old will a mature deer be?
We say anything from 5 years on up is considered mature. And of course, you'll see some outstanding deer at less than that, but we try to get them at least 5, assuming they're not going to make it much past 8, or if they do, their horns are on the decline.
One of the great things about hunting in Texas is the amount and diversity of wildlife you'll see. Turkeys seem to be just about everywhere. Wild or feral hogs have increased to such a point, most ranchers and game managers consider them a nuisance. Coyotes are an ever-present feature as well. And then there are the javelina, or collared peccary to be exact. These eating machines with a bad temper are about as prolific here in Texas as squirrels or rabbits in other parts of the country. And best of all, every one of these great game animals can be hunted at the same time that you're whitetail hunting. So take it from me, there's never a dull moment on a good Texas ranch like the 74. And right now, Steve and Rick will attest to that fact.
Yeah, look at here.
Yep.
That's fresh.
Yeah,
Probably last night. Yeah, this is a good sign. We're definitely in the right area.
Yeah, if you watch for the sign, put you in the right area. Now if we can just get him to come out
See
and
if he'll come
cooperate.
Back around.
Yeah, good. I think we're about ready here.
Okay, how's your shooting lanes? Can you see all right?
I'm okay here. I think this one is probably going to be a little
Better your way. Let's get settled in now. We don't have a permanent stand in this area, so we went ahead and put up this brush blind, but we've seen a couple of really nice bucks in here. In fact, I saw that other one this morning, you'll remember. I think they're going to kind of drift out. There's a heavy line of brush down here, and I think we ought to probably see them out to the right. If you'll watch out that way, I'll keep an eye out the left side for see if something comes up.
Yeah. That little buck is still hanging around down there that was here when we started setting up. Little guy. But I'll kind of watch this direction out here.
Okay.
And let's just hope he comes that way.
All right.
We'll see what happens. There's deer. There's doe.
It's a doe.
There's the buck right behind him.
He's pretty good. If he gets in the clear, take a shot.
Got him.
He's down.
He's down. He's down.
He's down.
That was a nice deer.
Well, he didn't get a real good look. A few seconds. Let's go.
Those times were not
take a look. Let's take a look. Right up here. Yep. Oh, there's the antlers. No, I think he's down for the count. He's out. Nice deer. That's what we were after.
That's what you came for.
Oh, look at this.
Look at the tines on him. Beans, nice beans. He's a deer.
This is what we came for. That's why we passed up all those other nice deer, but this one's so much better.
Classic style too, chasing a doe.
That's right.
Running hard.
Again. This is what we were after.
The 74 is one of the premier hunting ranches in South Texas, and my guess is each of these life members has special memories of this hunt. And right up there along with the deer they took will be the camaraderie and friendship they shared. Each had a special experience all their own. But with each great hunt comes the chance to make new friends and share the kind of things that the North American Hunting Club is all about. Those are the memories that last.
What are you shooting at? Oh, just shoot right into the middle of the horse corral over there.
No horses there.
Yeah, no horses. Trigger's fairly light.
Nothing promises to revolutionize modern rifle technology like the electronic rifle. The rifles are made by an Austrian company called Burke and shoot waterproof, caseless ammo. Now, Club Vice President Mark LaBarbera is no cameraman, but he did have a chance to witness a field test of one of these new rifles on a recent hunting trip to Montana.
This new rifle is produced by Burke Company in Austria, and it's very, very unique. As a matter of fact, in 100 years of producing rifles, this is probably the most unique new product to hit the market since the Model 1898 Mauser. What is unique about it is that it fires a caseless cartridge, which is set off by an electrical charge, as opposed to the old brass cartridge idea that is set off by a firing pin. And the way this works, it's really quite simple. There's a cavity here where two of these special batteries go in, and you have a safety. When you take the safety off, you might be able to see there's a red light comes on. And now the batteries feed a capacitor, and once the capacitor is fully charged, this has a detachable 5-shot magazine. That's quite conventional. So when you load the gun, put the magazine in, which works a little better if you can see what you're doing. When you work the bolt like a standard firearm, load a cartridge, which is empty right now. When the safety's off, you reach for the trigger. When you pull the trigger, you are actually not releasing a firing pin. Once you pull the trigger, there are no moving parts. What you've done is you've actually tripped a micro switch. And the electricity comes out of the capacitor and comes out through a brass contact here, goes through the end of the bolt and through the end of a conductor on the bolt, and the electrical charge jumps onto this primer, sets off the primer, and the priming compound then starts burning this entire cartridge here. There is no outer casing on this cartridge. This is actually solid nitrocellulose single-base gunpowder. So when you actually fire the cartridge, the bullet of course leaves the barrel at about 3,250 feet per second. And when you throw the bolt open, nothing comes out but smoke. So you consume the entire cartridge, primer, everything. Bullet goes out the end of the barrel, everything else is totally burned. Very unique. Several advantages, interesting features here. Number one, these cartridges weigh virtually nothing. The bullet in this 223 equivalent, the bullet is 2/3 of the cartridge weight. So you could carry 50 rounds in your pocket and hardly even know you've got them there. The speed with which this cartridge is set off is absolutely phenomenal. In rifle technology, the amount of time it takes for the firearm to actually go off once you have pulled the trigger is called the lock time. Comes from the old muzzleloader days when you had lock, stock, and barrel. The lock is the firing mechanism, and the lock time is the amount of time it takes the mechanical device in a rifle to actually fire the cartridge after you have pulled the trigger. Well, of course, with mechanical systems, there's a lot of things that have to move and metal parts that have to integrate, but with an electronically fired cartridge like this, in essence what you have is the lock time is the speed it takes electricity to go from the trigger to the cartridge. And of course, that is about a half a nanosecond. Practically speaking, it's about 5 times faster than a conventional firearm. So what that means is when you have lined up your crosshairs on the target and your mind tells you it's time to fire that gun, the faster that gun goes off, the less time you have for that barrel to wobble off the target. That means your accuracy increases. Our experience has been that these firearms are shooting half-inch group and better. As a matter of fact, the majority of them will tend to shoot about a 1/3 inch group. And that's just virtually unheard of in mass-produced firearms. So again, there are a lot of unique and interesting features here, but I can tell you in shooting off from a bench, I've shot the best groups I've ever shot in my life. And I've had the opportunity to hunt with these firearms for the past year and a half or so. I have found that Even though on a bench it helps you a lot to have that super fast lock time, it's even more important when you're hunting, because from hunting positions you're not as solid as on a bench. It's really important to be able to get that shot off accurately and hit what you're trying to shoot. And I've been very lucky and had a chance to take probably about 10 or 12 head of game with these rifles, and I've had a lot of heart shots. I didn't realize quite how good a game shot I was until I started shooting these rifles. This one is a 223 caliber ballistic equivalent, and there is also a 6mm that is coming on the market right now. That 6mm would be essentially equivalent to a 243. Just to give you a quick example, here's a standard 30-06 cartridge, and here is the Voray caseless cartridge, which would be the equivalent of a 243. So let's go ahead and shoot it. Everybody got their ears on? You'll notice right after we shoot, when we open up the bolt, you see nothing but a puff of smoke. There's no cartridge to eject.
These new rifles can fire 3,000 rounds per charge, just as fast as you can work the bolt. I can't wait to try one. Will Primos and the gang from Primos Game Calls are next with some of the best turkey action I've ever seen. In fact, it's so good, we just couldn't pass it up. Wild turkeys are among the most intelligent game birds on the continent, but there's something about the annual spring mating ritual and good old-fashioned male competition that made these two California jakes forget about everything else. Did you see those two jakes head for the hills? I bet they're still moving. They were so preoccupied you could have reached out and touched them. I wonder if it's in the California water. Well, the Primos boys eventually ended up near Pine Ridge, South Dakota, where the turkeys are used to wide open spaces. That means these birds are tough to locate, and you've got to call them in from a long ways off. Let's see how it's done.
Now that gobbler was a long way off, and he's got hens coming with him. How'd you get him that far to that point?
Yeah. Well, we heard him gobble over there, and all of a sudden we see him. He tops that hill, and we just went to just cranking on.
I mean, he's a half mile away.
Yeah, he's 600-700 yards easy, and we just went to cranking on the tube call. And you'll see we were beating on that slate, and he went to answering, and the hens went to answering.
Yeah, you can see the hens leading him. So the number one thing to get him to that gully and to go and bring him a little bit further was mimicking his hens, calling just like the hens were doing. We chased the runner all over that country. I know it was at least 3 miles. Up and down, across gullies, huge rocks, you name it, we had to go over it.
And we chased that turkey all that day. And the following day, it was the same thing. We had roosted him the night before and were chasing and chasing and chasing, and he wouldn't come. And by now, it was 3 longbeards and 7 hens in the flock. And we finally just made the decision that no matter what it took, we were going to use the terrain and get in front. I'm on that gobbler.
Boy, I'll tell you what, there's nothing harder than holding your shot or your breath until those big birds are within range, especially after you've followed them all over the countryside and called them in across that terrain. Western turkey hunting, boy, there's nothing like it. Bullets, bullets, bullets. The number of choices available, even in a single caliber and cartridge, is mind-boggling. But it can be honestly said there's a right bullet for every shooting situation. I'm lucky enough to shoot all year long and work in the hunting world every day. Yet even with diligent study, it can be difficult to keep up on all the latest innovations in bullet design. Fortunately, there are a few basic principles you can use to demystify hunting bullet selection. Bullets for hunting purposes fall into 3 main categories. There are bullets for varmints and small predators like woodchucks, prairie dogs, foxes, and coyotes. There are bullets for thin-skinned big game like deer and antelope. And there are bullets for large and sometimes dangerous big game like grizzly bear, moose, and elk. The best way to tell on factory ammunition is to carefully look at the information printed on the end of the box. Here's a box of Remington extended range ammunition for a .280 Remington, one of my favorite all-around cartridges. The key is to look closely at the bullet weight indication. The rule of thumb is that heavier bullets are for heavier game, lighter bullets for lighter game. Big game bullets come in a multitude of profiles, weights, and jacket designs. Each has a specific performance goal it is designed to achieve. The best way to determine if your bullet matches your hunting situation is to study the cartridge box or the manufacturer's annual catalog. Make your selections, then test them in your rifle for accuracy. And one last tip, don't let anyone claim that a heavy, slow, blunt-nosed bullet will bust brush. No bullet of any design will reliably perform on game after it hits anything between you and your target. Before we join Judy and Jean out there in beautiful Wyoming, I wanted to let you know that she's shooting a scope crossbow, which is a legal hunting tool in Wyoming and a few other states and provinces as well. And as the popularity of this ancient hunting instrument continues to grow and the myths are dispelled concerning its use, I believe additional hunting opportunities will be opened up for crossbow enthusiasts. But for right now, let's join North American Hunting Club members Judy and Gene Gallix.
Our video takes you on an elk hunt in the Wind River Mountains of western Wyoming, where Judy uses a Horton Super Sport crossbow to go after bull elk. I did the filming and the calling, so the camera action gets a little shaky when the bull comes in, but I think you can understand that. So now, stay tuned for the hunt.
During one of our preseason scouting trips, we called in the bull that you see there in the center of the screen. I was trying to call and video at the same time, and that explains the shaky camera action. At that point, had we been set up to hunt, he would have been about a 30-yard broadside shot. Judy goes all out when it comes to archery elk hunting, all the way to the camouflage grease paint. While up at camp, we let the kids ride the quads around, give the dogs a ride in the middle of the afternoon, and then towards evening we'd go hunting. One evening we run into this moose while we was up there. He was a pretty nice one. And then on September 7th, we ran into one. You can see him there in the center of your screen. We'd walked up over a little ridge, and the wind was blowing towards us. I could smell the elk. We were only probably 50 yards away or so at that time, and we saw him working over that tree. So here's what happened next. After 20 minutes, here he came. The elk stopped about 10 yards out in front of my wife. You can see her right there in the front of the screen. Trees in the way, so she couldn't get a shot. It stayed that way for about 5 minutes before she was finally able to get a shot. At one point, the elk was within 8 yards of her.
I feel for Judy right here at this moment, and at the same time I'm envious, as the seconds tick by waiting for your quarry to come into range or to present a better shooting angle. These moments can seem to take forever. But then again, this is the very essence of hunting, isn't it?
Judy said that all she could see was horns at this point. Would have been a perfect shot from where I was, but Judy had trees blocking her view of the chest cavity, so she couldn't shoot. This was the first time he had been in the open where she could get a clear shot at his chest cavity. The bull saw her move and took off. I bugled a few more times, hoping that he wouldn't run too far. The bull had gone less than 100 yards after she shot him. When she gets right up by the horns, a bird took out of the tall grass and startled her.
Okay, what do you got to say, hon?
A lot of got him. Great.
It was her first archery elk. Starting to get dark, had to get him all field dressed and packed back to the Jeep, so this will be the end of the video.
Congratulations, Judy, and thanks, Jim, for packing that camera along so you could share that adventure with the rest of the club. Every deer hunter dreams about taking a trophy buck, but there's as many definitions of trophy as there are hunters out there. For some, it's taking a buck with a big rack. For others, it's the conditions that make a deer a trophy. And for others still, it's finding the oldest buck in the woods. On a recent hunt in Texas with North American Hunter Whitetail columnist Larry Weischen, Larry gave me some pointers on judging the age of deer.
Well, deer are very individualistic as to the way they look and the way they act, but at the same time, you can use certain patterns. In looking at a deer, what we're trying to harvest is mainly deer that are 4.5 years old or older. And if you will look at a deer and don't look at his rack, just disregard his rack. Look at his face, look at his body, and how he moves. And by doing that, you can compare that age deer, what you're looking at, to potentially the same age human in tens of years. Most of the time, the yearlings are going to look about like somebody that's in their teens, up to about 18 years of age. They're going to be tight skinned, their neck's not going to be very big, somewhat muscular, but not fully developed. By the time they're 2.5 years of age, they're starting to fill out. They're starting to look sleek. Their neck's not going to swell much during the rut. Skin very tight about the face. At 3.5, they're going to be fully developed muscle-wise, and at 4.5, they're going to start being body mature, where all the long bones are growing. But at 3.5, 4.5, probably the hardest to judge the difference between the two ages. The neck starts to swell beyond the point of the jaw, meaning from right here outward. Generally, if you see a buck like that, chances are he's going to be at least a 3.5-year-old. By the time he gets to be a 5.5-year-old deer, he's going to develop jowls, kind of like a 50-year-old person. You know, that's the reason I wear
I'm a little ways away from that, yeah.
I wear a beard so that you can't see my jowls. But as he approaches at 5.5 years of age, the skin around his face becomes very loose. Maybe his eyes are slack. He moves a little bit slower when he moves. He's still very muscular built. A mature deer, if you look at him from a distance, looks like he's all neck and all shoulders. He doesn't hardly have any hips, other than he may have a pot belly. And as you get into that 6, 7, and 8 years old, they usually have a big neck, the skin's very loose, they're pot bellied, they walk like they're arthritic. And if, like I say, if you just kind of compare them to the different tens of ages that you get into with humans, you can come very close on those ages.
Mm-hmm. And that's the great thing about South Texas and a ranch situation. You get to look during a hunt at deer of all those ages.
That's right. I know when I go out, I know I'm going to see deer, and I know I'm going to see a lot of deer, and I know I'm going to have the opportunity to pass up bucks. And I get as big a thrill out of passing up a 2 or 3-year-old deer as I do taking down a big, almost.
Judging a deer's age isn't easy, but with practice, you can increase your chances of taking home a trophy. Life member Paul Rademacher sent us this video of an Ontario bow hunting trip. It seems that hunting buddy Tom Waitrevick took his bear on the first day of the hunt, so he stayed behind to cook and clean up camp while the rest of the guys went back out hunting. Now, what do you suppose Tom runs into when he comes around the corner of the cabin that morning?
Hey, get out of there. Hey, what are you doing? You don't seem to care, do you? Hey, hit the road. Hey, Mr. Bear. You're not too afraid of me, are you? I don't think this is too good for you to be here. I got guys out in the woods looking for someone just like you. They can't shoot a bear, and we got one right here in camp. Maybe we should set a stand up right here on the porch, huh? Hey, you. Must be an escapee from a circus. You somebody's pet or what? Oops, I stepped on a can. All right, you can finish that, but you gotta go then. We gotta get rid of you somehow. Are you deaf or are you blind or what? What are you doing on my four-wheeler? Yeah, now maybe you can see me, huh? You're comical. But dangerous. Hey, hey, hey! Hey, no chewing the bucket. Hey, can you see me? Here's something else. Hey, get out of there! I bet I could get close to him. Not too close, though. You get your head caught in there. Well, we gotta do something here. Yeah, look at me, huh? How is it that we can't get a bear to come to any of our baits when there's people sitting in them, but you walk right up here and just steal my bait out of the back off my buckets? You don't even care that I'm here. That's okay, I got you on film.
The bear must have figured that the middle of the hunting camp was just about the safest place to be during bear season. For pheasants over pointing dogs, give me a 2 3/4 inch 12, 3 1/4 gram, packing 1 1/4 ounces of 6s. For turkeys, I'll take a max 10, 3 1/2 inch mag with 2 1/4 ounces of copper 5s. But for sporting clays, I like a fast handling 12 with 1 ounces and 8 1/2 at 1155 feet per second. What was that, you're asking? Well, I was just describing for you some of my favorite shot shell loads. Too often, folks walk up to the counter and say, give me a box of dove loads, whatever's the cheapest. And that's a shame, because there's a lot of information printed right on the end of the shot shell box that can help you improve your wing shooting success and enjoyment. Let's take a look. The first number indicates the gauge or the diameter of the bore of the shotgun. Gauge is an old measuring system based on the number of lead balls, the diameter of the bore that it takes to make a pound. The common gauges today are 10, 12, 16, 20, and 28. The bigger the number, the smaller the gauge. Next is the length of the shell. Note that it's the length of a fired shell, not crimped and ready to fire. You can safely shoot shells of the proper gauge up to the length inscribed on your gun's barrel. The third number is the dram equivalent of powder loaded in the shell. This measurement is of black powder heritage, but it's outdated and should be changed. The thing to remember is the higher the number, the more powerful the load. In the case of magnums, you'll sometimes see the word max. That means it's the most powerful load that can be put in that shell. The next number is the weight of the shot in the shell. Depending on gauge and load, this will range from 1/2 ounce to 2 1/4 ounces. The final number indicates the size of the pellets in the shell. On lead loads, this will range from 9 to 2. The bigger the number, the smaller the pellets, just like gauge. Smaller shot is for smaller, closer game. Use larger shot for bigger birds farther from the gun. Take this knowledge with you the next time you go to buy shot shells, and you'll have no problem selecting the right loads to improve your wing shooting success. When we say someone is eating crow, it usually means they're eating their pride. In the case of guide Jerry Tomlin, however, eating crow means just that, calling them in, hunting them, and cooking them up. Jerry hunts crows from a blind, and as you'll see, he's also very good at it.
Let him come in, Pat.
Good. Oh, here's another one coming in front of us. Coming in front of us.
Good shot, baby. All right. Yo, baby.
Mouth call in the hands of an experienced caller that knows when to use it and what calls to use can be much more effective than any electronic caller which is out on the market today. in that you can actually give the call that you need at the appropriate time to turn the crows around or else to bring him to you over to your blind. If you don't have a suitable blind location, then standing against the trees like this to break up your outline works well, provided you are wearing total camouflage, including a head net and gloves. These are essential to crow shooting as they help to conceal your movement from the crow's keen eyesight. When using the duck hunting method and hunting in an area where the crows are feeding, the two main calls you will use are the feeding call and the come here call to direct their attention over to the decoys, because once they have spotted the decoys, they will come on over and investigate them. The feeding call is either a series of 6 alternating short and long calls or a series of 8 in a pattern like this. The come here call is the pattern of 3 evenly spaced calls, which sounds like this. The come here call can be used by itself or in conjunction with the feeding call like this. Y'all see that? When on a hot crow shoot like this, you are going to want to carry 3 or 4 calls on a lanyard around your neck so that you can easily grab another should one foul with saliva. And believe me, it will happen to you. A wooden call such as the Falk C50, which I have used for over 20 years with great success, will have less of a tendency to stick than a plastic call. And I also feel that the wooden calls have a much truer crow-like sound to them. And the best sounding call I have found is handmade by the 1988 and 89 National Crow Calling Champion, Greg Lower. It's absolutely the best that I have ever heard. Decoys are an essential part of crow shooting and draw the crow's attention away from you and the blind. A half dozen to 2 dozen decoys spread 15 to 20 feet apart in front of the blind is usually adequate. For every 5 that you place on the ground, you should hang 1 in a nearby tree to simulate a sentry bird watching for danger as the others feed below him. By attaching a string to the back of the carry light decoys, this allows you to throw the decoy over a limb where he can be seen from a long distance away by the crows. When using a blind, it should match the natural surroundings. We've had great success using the Brelmar Hightam Hunter die-cut material, which comes in a variety of patterns to match any situation. By also placing a section of the netting behind you, this will help to break up your outline from birds approaching from in front of you, as well as from birds approaching from behind. Well, now I know there's some of y'all that are thinking, well, what do you do with the crows afterwards and how do you clean them? We're going to end up eating ours, so I'm going to show you how to go about cleaning a crow. And what you're going to need is a sharp knife and also a heavy-duty pair of scissors. And I've got a pair of surgical bandage scissors here, which just a regular heavy pair of sewing scissors will do, but whatever you do, don't go get your wife's good pair of sewing scissors unless you want to be in the doghouse. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to feel for the base of the breast here, and take your knife and punch it in and cut to the right, turn it around and make a cut back to the left. Okay. Once you've done that, either you can hold the legs like this and peel the breast forward, okay, exposing it like this, and then take your heavy bandage scissors and come in through the neck and then just cut the 2 bones that connect the breast to the wings. All right, come through the other side like that, and either you can take the scissors and cut it free, or you can come back with your knife. Now once you've got it to this point, the simplest thing to do is just turn it over and take it at the base of the breast and just peel the feathers forward like this, and there's your crow breast. Crow breast tastes exactly like a mallard duck. So it does have a little bit of a liver taste just like a mallard duck does, and that's as close as I can come to describing the taste of it. The recipe we're going to do today is one that we do here with the marinade. When you cook it properly, it comes out tender. We've marinated our crows overnight, and we're ready to go ahead and stick them on the grill here. We're gonna put some hickory chips on, because I always use hickory chips on just any kind of meat that I put on the grill, because it just adds such a really good flavor to it. So the smoking effect of the hickory chips really does a good job. All right, we got it on there. So we're gonna drop these on here, and when you're cooking crow on the grill, you don't want to cook it too quick, because of the fact that it will tend to make it come out tough, and if you do overcook it, it's going to come out tough a little bit. But if you do it just right, which is about 10 minutes on each side, it's going to come out like a piece of steak. I mean, it is a really pretty piece of meat. And we're going to have the fellas that were shooting with me on the 2 shoots, they're both here, and we're all going to have a little bit of it here this evening. So let's put it on, and we'll give it 10 minutes, and then we'll flip it.
I tell you what it tastes like to me is like them filet mignons they have up there in Atlanta.
Crows are protected in some areas under migratory bird laws, but they can also be a nuisance and have a reputation for damaging crops and destroying waterfowl nests and wild turkey eggs. Check local game laws for hunting guidelines in your area. As editor of your official club publication, North American Hunter, I get the chance to travel all over the continent for some of hunting's finest adventures. Yet I still find that most of life's greatest outdoor pleasures are also the simplest ones. A beautiful sunset, the jittery nerves of another opening morning, a dog locked on point, and one of my all-time favorites, a down-home back 40 whitetail hunt. This past season I had the opportunity to share such an outing in southeastern Minnesota with a couple of great old friends, Art Wheaton of Remington Firearms and Larry Bridgman of Simmons Scopes and Binoculars. In this agricultural area of Minnesota, as in many other areas east of the Mississippi River, shotguns shooting slugs are the required firearms. The close proximity of buildings and livestock make this a logical choice and a legal necessity. In the past, that meant shooting a Foster-type slug through a barrel intended for birdshot, which added up to mediocre performance at 50 yards and a great deal of luck if you tried to stretch that shot out to 100 yards or beyond. But that's definitely not the case anymore. With us today, we've got a couple of guys that should really know how to put a slug rig together. Art Wheaton from Remington, which makes the shotguns and the shells, and Larry Bridgman from Simmons, which makes the outstanding optics. Guys, these guns are as accurate as they get inside 100 yards, aren't they?
I'm so impressed. As a matter of fact, I'd almost be tempted to stretch it past 100 yards if it wasn't so thick out there.
Yeah. Now, Remington offers a couple of options in the barrels that you can get for slug shooting. You can either get a full rifled barrel or a choke tube that's rifled.
That's exactly right. Obviously, the smooth bore that everybody's familiar with, and then a choke tube option, whereby you can put a rifle tube in the end, or just a plain improved cylinder, modified or full choke. And then, of course, the fully rifle tube that you see here today. And of course, you've seen us use the copper solid, and you know full well what capabilities of that is in the fully rifle tube. And it's an imperative that that's used with a rifling system.
Well, Larry, on the scope end, things haven't been sitting still either. We've been seeing a lot of new scopes specifically geared towards shotgun shooting.
That's true, Bill. As a matter of fact, we currently make over 10 different models to accommodate all different types of shotgun hunting, including a new Pro Diamond reticle that we designed, which is perfect not only for the turkey hunter, but also for people that would like to use on their slug hunt.
Describe that reticle design.
Well, it's basically a reticle that it overlays the conventional crosshair, and at 40 yards it happens to just cover the vital area of a deer and also the tight pattern in a full choke shotgun for turkey hunting.
Well, there's no doubt already we're seeing what kind of accuracy they're giving us. We got to get all 3 of these shotguns sighted in. We've got another rifled barrel gun, and I got my old timer with the smooth bore. I'm going to shoot the Foster style slugs, so let's give them all a try and see what we can do.
Okay.
After we got all the shotguns sighted in, it was time to take to the woods. Larry Bridgman would be leaving us now, but Art and I would be joined by our hunting host and North American Hunting Club member, Bob Borowiak of Houston, Minnesota. Bob had learned countless lessons from its resident whitetails, and rule number 1 is to hunt from a stand on opening morning.
There's a deer coming up from the left down here. Yeah, it's a buck. A lot of brush. Now he's heading down in the brush. I'm gonna get my grunt. Lost him now. Oh, there he comes. He's down. He went down. Going to give him a few minutes here to make sure. You don't want to push him right away. Yeah, there he is. All right.
Yeah, Bill, over here. Early success.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Nice deer. Where's your stand?
Oh, right on the, just over the knob over there, about 100 yards or so.
That's a good shot. Good shot.
Well, he's no monster, but...
Hey, they all taste good.
Oh, you betcha.
It's just in the base of his antlers
Yeah,
here.
he's really been rubbing.
Something.
I don't know, he's really in a soft tree there or something.
Oh, yeah, must be. He really
Yeah.
had a bunch of it up there. Well, let's get him taken care of.
Yeah,
Let's see how
we're-
the other guys are doing.
To get him down the hill.
Okay. Well, that was no monster buck Bob took there. Just a nice, typical 1.5-year-old buck. The kind that would make for some great eating over the coming winter months. And soon after we got that basket buck out of the woods, Art spotted a similar sized buck moving along a small stand of pines.
That's good, right there.
Art, you still got a good trail?
Yeah, it's pretty good, Bill.
Okay, I'll just keep paralleling you.
Bill, I found some blood over here.
Okay.
Here he is, Bill.
Is he done?
Yeah, he's down.
Good, good. Oh yeah, that's another good buck for another Minnesota opening day buck.
Nice buck.
Good deal. Nice deer. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
All right, you made a perfect shot on him. Those all copper slugs really do a number.
Yeah, they really do a job. I think that deer was a good 75 yards, and it was a good hit.
Yeah.
I was real pleased with it. Of course, you know, you've got to have the rifle barrel with it.
When you got a rifled barrel and a scope on a gun like that, it's virtually a short-range rifle.
You're right, Bill. The accuracy certainly is dependent on the rifle barrel. Very important.
Well, the technology with slugs and slug guns has come so far. Even if it weren't the law in country like this, it'd be an excellent choice for any hunter. I mean, at these ranges where you're very seldom going to get a shot at more than 100 yards.
Oh, absolutely. The technology has made a quantum leap in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Is that a function that more and more parts of the country are requiring it?
I think certainly as population starts to invade some of the old hunting areas, that it's really the only thing left is slug hunting.
I think it's important for people to remember, too, that even though the accuracy of these guns is increased, which allows you to shoot a little bit further, the range that the slug carries isn't any further, so there's no safety concern there.
Oh, that's exactly right. You know, you're looking at basically 100 yards as the maximum.
Yeah, the effective range is 100 yards, but the maximum range they'll carry is several hundred yards, whereas opposed to a rifle could be miles.
Oh, that's absolutely right. Not only the ammunition and barrel technology, but also optics and the way that the scopes are mounted now on the barrel. Good optics matched up with a good slug system is great.
The neat thing about that cantilever system on these guns is the fact that the scope is mounted to the barrel, so you can interchange barrels and still keep your scope zeroed.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, what we've done is adapt some of the target shooting mentality with the high comb on the stock, the Monte Carlo type stock, which brings your face up to get good eye relief and good access to the scope.
Yeah. Slugs are known as kickers too, but with a semi-automatic action and a good recoil pad, pretty much anybody can handle it.
No, it's very light recoil, yes. And I happen to have on today an excellent Simmons scope, a Pro Diamond, which not only features the crosshair, but the diamond that surrounds the crosshair. It really helps you move quickly to the target.
Yeah, a lot of guys are taking that up for turkey hunting too.
Oh yes, very much so.
Yeah, and heavy cover, that's a super scope.
Yeah, great brush system. But I suppose now we got to do some work, don't we?
Oh yeah, this is where the fun ends and the work begins.
Oh Lord.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Hunting Odyssey. I've enjoyed this chance to share the thrill of several hunts with you, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. But before we go, we need to thank all of the folks who helped make this Hunting Odyssey possible. First, North American Hunting Club President Steve Burke and Southwest Safaris guide Rick Hodges for that great Texas whitetail hunt. Jim Morey and cameraman and Club Vice President Mark LaBarbera for sharing the exciting new developments in caseless cartridges. Will Primos and the gang at Primos Game Calls for the South Dakota turkey hunt, and especially for that rare footage of those California jakes. Club members Judy and Gene Gallitz for taking the time to share Judy's first bow elk hunt with the rest of the club. And of course my thanks to outdoor writer and whitetail guide Larry Weischen for showing us how to figure the age of that deer you've just set your sights on. Club Life member Paul Rademacher and his buddy Tom Waitrevic for the steady camera work under pressure. I wonder if that bear was an escapee from the circus. Jerry Tomlin and his friends for eating crow with us and showing us how to do it better than anyone else. And finally, Art Wheaton of Remington, Larry Bridgman of Simmons, and especially club member and host Bob Borowiak for that down-home, back 40 Minnesota whitetail hunt. I'm Bill Miller for the North American Hunting Club. Until next time, take care and good hunting.